I fell in love with a man I had never seen. Not even in a photo. No voice, no face, just words. In a world obsessed with filters and followers, we found love in silence. They say love begins with a glance. A smile shared across a crowded CAF. A spark when hands brush by accident. That's how it happens in the stories people like to tell. But mine began in a whisper. One that lived inside a screen. One that spoke without a face, without a voice. Just typed words. Quiet, honest, and raw. It was a rainy Thursday night. The kind that makes the world feel far away and the silence feel louder. I was curled up in bed, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of lavender and memories. My laptop screen glowed softly in the dim room, casting a pale light across my fingertips as I scrolled aimlessly through everything and nothing at once. Emails, ads, perfect people in perfect photos. It all felt too curated, too loud. That's when I clicked on an app I didn't even remember downloading. Quiet Space. The name felt oddly comforting. I opened it, not expecting much. No profiles, no pictures, no noise. Just a single prompt on a blank screen. What's something you wish someone asked you today? My hands hovered over the keys. It felt silly to reply. Who would even see it? But still, something in me stirred. A quiet part I hadn't listened to in a long time. I typed without really thinking, "Are you okay?" Because honestly, I'm not. But I'm really good at pretending. I stared at the screen for a moment. My finger hovered over the submit button. Then I clicked. It was out there now, floating in digital space. I didn't expect anything to happen. I closed the laptop and went to sleep, thinking it would be forgotten by morning, but it wasn't. The next day, just after I'd finished brushing my hair and preparing for another dull, screen-filled workday, my phone buzzed with a notification. You've received a response to your journal post. My heart skipped. A response? I opened the app. There it was. A message. Anonymous. Just text. No name. No image. But it hit deeper than anything I'd read in a long time. Pretending gets heavy, doesn't it? Like wearing armor made of lead. You don't have to carry it alone. I just sat there, blinking at the screen. There was no judgment, no fake sympathy, just understanding, like they saw right through the mask I wore every day. I felt something stir curiosity, warmth, a flicker of hope. I replied. I didn't think anyone would respond. A few hours later, another reply arrived. I almost didn't. It made me smile. Really smile. The kind of smile that starts in your chest before it ever reaches your lips. It felt like the beginning of something I couldn't quite name. From that day on, we wrote to each other, always in response to the daily question. Never direct messages, never names or personal details. Just reflections, answers, thoughts, emotions. It became our rhythm, our ritual. The next prompt was, "What do you miss most about your younger self?" I typed. She wasn't afraid of crowds, or voices, or being seen. Their reply came in the evening. He wasn't tired all the time. He didn't mistake exhaustion for personality. I don't know why, but I read it again, and again, and again. It wasn't just a message. It was a mirror. Every day brought something new. What would you say to your future self? When did you last cry? What does safety feel like to you? I opened up more than I ever had in therapy. More than with my best friend. More than with my mother, who still asked if I was okay with that same nervous look in her eyes. I told them about the time I broke down in a grocery store because the lights were too bright and the crowd too close. About how I hadn't taken a bus in 2 years because panic attacks made me afraid of being trapped. About how exhausting it was to perform normalcy every single day. And they listened. Not with pity, not with awkward silence, but with words that held space for me. Maybe it's not weakness, they wrote once. Maybe your nervous system is just tired of pretending everything is fine. Maybe it's asking you to slow down, to heal. I asked about them too. Slowly, carefully. Never too much at once. They shared things too. That they used to be a star performer in a corporate company. Everyone expected everything from them all the time. But inside, they were empty. Drained. Every day felt like running through quicksand. Eventually, they just stopped, walked out, deleted everything, started over, found peace in silence. We had never seen each other's faces, never heard each other's voices, and yet there was more intimacy in those anonymous words than in any of the polished conversations I'd had with people who knew my name. My mom noticed a change. You've been quieter, she said one morning. Quieter, but lighter, I shrugged, pretending not to know what she meant. You're smiling more, she added, pouring tea into a chipped mug. I looked down, hiding the corner of my lips curling upward. Maybe I'm just feeling better. She gave me a knowing look. Did something happen? I wanted to say yes, that someone had entered my life. But how do you explain falling for someone when you don't know their name? When you've never even seen their eyes? So I just said, kind of. We continued like that for weeks. Writing, responding, sharing tiny pieces of ourselves without ever revealing too much. It was strange, magical, safe. I'd wake up wondering what the prompt would be, what they'd say, what I'd feel reading it. It didn't matter that we were strangers. It didn't matter that I didn't know what they looked like, because with them I never felt invisible, and without knowing it, they were becoming the most important person in my world. I used to think that anonymity meant distance, that when someone doesn't know your face, your name, your history, they couldn't possibly know your heart. But I was wrong. The more we wrote to each other, the closer I felt. I didn't even know what to call him. I had to invent a nickname in my mind just to keep him from being a void. I called him Quiet, because that's what he brought me. Quiet, not the kind that echoes with loneliness, but the kind that wraps around you like a warm blanket after a long, chaotic day. Quiet, like peace. It became the best part of my day. Logging into Quiet Space, reading his response, crafting my own reply with more care than I had given most people in my real life. Sometimes I'd type something, delete it, reword it, until it felt like the most honest version of me possible. We weren't performing for each other. We weren't trying to impress. We were just being. One day, the question was, what's the biggest lie you've ever told yourself? I stared at the blinking cursor for a while before typing that I'm hard to love. It sat there on the screen like a confession I'd never dared say aloud. And when I hit submit, I instantly regretted it. I felt raw, exposed, like I'd shown too much of my underbelly. But his response came a few hours later, and it melted something inside me. You're not hard to love. Someone just made you believe love had to hurt first. I read it again, and suddenly I felt tears running down my cheeks. Not because I was sad, because someone I'd never met understood. It wasn't always heavy, though. Some prompts were light-hearted, even silly. If you could have dinner with any fictional character, who would it be? I wrote, Luna Lovegood. She'd probably bring pudding and make me feel like it's okay to be weird. He replied, Calvin. From Calvin and Hobbes. He reminds me of who I used to be. And maybe, still am. I laughed out loud in my room. Really laughed. And then immediately looked around like I'd done something wrong. That's how far gone I had been. I'd forgotten what joy without guilt felt like. But he was bringing it back to me, one line at a time. We began to develop patterns. Inside jokes. He called my answers poetry in pajamas, because I told him I always wrote at night in oversized flannel. I called his replies truth bombs in lowercase, because he never capitalized anything. It felt like his way of staying humble. Or hidden. Or both. Every now and then, I'd find myself wondering about him. Not in a desperate, what does he look like kind of way. More like, where is he when he's typing this? Does he write from a tiny apartment like me? Is he sipping tea or black coffee? Does he have a cat curled up by his side? But I never asked, because part of what made it feel sacred was the absence of expectation. There was a strange safety in not knowing. No assumptions. No room to judge. Just us, floating freely in this curated digital corner of vulnerability. Sometimes I caught myself imagining his voice. I don't even know why. I'd close my eyes and let it be whatever I needed in that moment, soft when I was anxious, steady when I was falling apart. Maybe he did the same with me. Or maybe I was just another entry he replied to out of habit. But then there were messages that said otherwise. One night, after I shared a memory of my childhood me, hiding under the kitchen table during thunderstorms, headphones on, pretending the world didn't exist, he replied, if I could, I'd crawl under that table with you. Just sit. No words. Just there. That line sat with me for days. I found myself whispering to myself in the quietest hours. It was strange, the comfort I found in words from a stranger. But maybe he wasn't a stranger anymore. One night, I got a notification at 3 a.m. Unusual. Quiet space didn't allow direct messages, only public responses to prompts. I checked anyway. There was a new feature. The ability to reply privately to a response, but still anonymously. A beta test, apparently, and there he was. His private message was simple. Can I say something not tied to a prompt? I hesitated, fingers frozen above the keyboard. Then I replied, yes. The typing indicator blinked for a long time. I could imagine him over there, maybe backspacing, maybe doubting himself. And then the message came through. I look for your words every day. And when they're not there, the day feels incomplete. I don't know what that means. But I know it means something. I read it once, then 10 more times. He looked for me, not my face. Not my photo. Not some filtered version of my life. Just me. My heart beat so fast, I thought I might pass out. And then I did something impulsive. I responded. It means something to me too. I thought I was just someone you stumbled across. I didn't know I'd become something you waited for. It was terrifying to be that open. But the moment I hit send, I felt lighter. There was no reply that night. Not right away. But I slept better than I had in years. And when I woke up, there it was. Maybe this is what it feels like to fall in love, without ever seeing the person at all. Falling in love without seeing a face is strange. It's like being guided through a dark tunnel by the sound of someone breathing beside you. You don't know where they're taking you. You just know you don't want them to stop. After he sent the message, maybe this is what it feels like to fall in love, I didn't reply right away. I stared at it for a long time, heart thudding like it wanted to climb out of my chest. I reread it, again and again, half in disbelief, half in terror, because I felt it too, and it scared me. It scared me how someone I'd never seen could make me feel more visible than anyone ever had. It scared me that a faceless stranger could feel like home. It scared me that this, whatever this was, felt more real than any of the almost relationships I'd had before. I didn't know what to say. So, I waited until the daily prompt returned. The question that day was, "What's something you know now that you didn't last year?" And I answered, that connection doesn't need sight. That sometimes the most honest love is blind. His response came later that afternoon. Sometimes the heart sees before the eyes are ready. Mine's been looking at you for weeks. I sat there with tears slipping down my cheeks, smiling like a fool. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming ache of being known. I wanted to reach through the screen, touch his hand, whisper that he wasn't alone in this feeling, but we had rules. No names, no faces, no real-world identifiers. We had both agreed that was what made quiet space safe, pure. And for so long, I had needed that safety more than anything. But now, I wanted more. I wanted to hear his laugh, not just read "ha-ha" in text. I wanted to see if he wrinkled his nose when he was confused, or if his eyes closed when he really smiled. I wanted him fully, not just his thoughts. And yet, I couldn't ask. So I waited, and I hoped. Days passed. Then a week. No messages. No replies to my prompts. I refreshed the app so often I started to hate myself for it. The silence, once comforting, now felt cruel. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe I said too much. Maybe I ruined it, but I couldn't let go. So one night, against all my fear, I posted again. No prompt, no question. Just, "Are you still there?" I stared at the screen, heart pounding like a drum. I felt pathetic, desperate, like someone begging in the dark. But I had to know. Nothing came for 2 more days. And then finally at 17 a.m. a notification lit up my screen. His message was shorter than usual. "I'm still here. Just scared." I've never felt this way before. Not without a face too full for. I exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath for a year. I wrote back, "Me too. But maybe that's what makes it real." And it was. After that, something shifted. We stopped pretending that we were just two strangers passing time. We leaned into it. We told each other more. He told me about his old job, a high-pressure corporate life that made him feel like a cog in a machine. About how the noise and speed of the world finally became too much. So he quit, moved to a small city, and started freelancing. He said he'd rather be broke and breathing than rich and buried. I told him about my panic attacks, the way my hands shook when I had to talk in public, how I memorized my coffee order days in advance just to avoid stuttering, how I hated mirrors, how I avoided eye contact even with people I loved, and he never flinched. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't offer cliches. He just listened. He said, "You don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. You're just healing." It was such a simple thing, but it meant everything. We talked every day again, through prompts, through quiet messages, through silence that now felt full of meaning. And then, one evening, it happened. The app sent out a message. "New update. Quiet Space will begin phasing in optional identity verification. Verified users will receive priority visibility starting next month." I stared at the screen like I'd been slapped. It was over. This space, the one place that felt real, was changing. Becoming like every other app. Prioritizing identity, pictures, names, visibility. I was shaking. What if he left? What if he verified and I didn't? Or what if he saw me, really saw me, and changed his mind? And what if I saw him and realized he wasn't who I'd built in my mind? It was too much. I didn't message that night. I couldn't. The next day, I opened the app and saw that he had written. I saw the update. My heart dropped. I don't want this to end. But maybe we should stop before we ruin what we had. And just like that, something inside me shattered. I had wanted more. But not like this. I typed back, hands trembling. Please don't disappear. Even if the app changes, don't let this be where it ends. Let me choose. Let me see you. Let me decide if I still want you, which I already know I do. I waited. No response. Not that night. Not the next. Then, on the third morning, a message finally came. I'm afraid. Not of you. Of what you'll see. Of not being the version you imagined. But if you're sure, I'll meet you. I reread his message at least 20 times. I'm afraid. Not of you. Of what you'll see. Of not being the version you imagined. But if you're sure, I'll meet you. Each word settled in my chest like a storm cloud and sunlight fighting for space. I didn't know whether to cry, laugh, or both. He was willing to meet me. In real life. After all this time. After everything we'd built between typed words and quiet vulnerability. But then came the panic. What if he did see me and realized I was too much? Too anxious, too plain, too quiet in the wrong ways. What if meeting face to face took away the magic? But another voice in me, smaller, softer, but firm, whispered something else. What if it made the magic real? So, I replied, I'm scared, too, but I'm sure. Let's meet. Whatever happens after, at least we'll know. He asked for a day and a place. We picked a public library downtown. A quiet place, safe, familiar, neutral. I liked that. And we set the time, Saturday, 3 p.m.no, exchanging names. No photos in advance. Just, I'll wear a navy hoodie. I'll have a copy of Norwegian Wood by Murakami in my hand. I smiled. That was such a hymn book. Sad, layered, poetic. I wrote back, I'll wear a grey sweater with stars on the sleeves. I'll be holding a red notebook. The next few days were unbearable. I barely slept. I rehearsed smiles in the mirror. I even considered cancelling 100 times. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't. This mattered. I told my MOM I was meeting someone. She looked surprised, but not disapproving. Someone from the app you've been using? I nodded. She didn't ask for details. Just hugged me and said, be safe. Be yourself. That's enough. Saturday came. I got there early. Too early. I sat on a bench outside the library, gripping my notebook so tightly my knuckles turned pale. My heart felt like a drum in my throat. At 2:59, I stood up and walked inside. The air was still and quiet, like a heartbeat waiting for its next beat. And then I saw him, navy hoodie, book in hand, standing near the window, looking at the door as if he already knew I'd arrived. He was tall, not too tall. His hair was a little messy, like he'd run his fingers through it too many times. His eyes, dark, soft, familiar, met mine instantly. He blinked like he couldn't believe it, then smiled. I don't know how long I stood there. He walked toward me, each step slow, deliberate, nervous. Then, he said the first real words I ever heard from him. I thought I imagined. You. I smiled, the kind of smile that hurts your cheeks and makes your eyes sting. You didn't. I'm real. We just looked at each other. No hug. No awkward handshake. Just a shared silence full of everything we never needed to say aloud. He glanced at the red notebook in my hands. You still writing your answers? Every day. He nodded. Me too. We sat down on a bench near the window. No one else was around. The world felt small, like it had folded itself into this exact moment just for us. Your voice, I said. It's different than I imagined. Better or worse? He asked, half teasing, half terrified. Just different, I said honestly. But it's yours. That's what matters. He smiled again. It was the same smile I'd imagined, but now it reached all the way to his eyes. We talked about the APP, about our entries, about the moments when we almost gave up, about the nights we waited for each other's words like lifelines. There were pauses, awkward ones, but they weren't empty, they were honest. We weren't polished. We were people. And that was better. At one point, I asked, why did you almost not show up? He looked at me, that same nervous warmth in his eyes, because I thought if you saw me, if I ruined your idea of me, it would break what we had. I didn't want to lose it. Lose you. I reached for his hand. It felt steady, real, warm. I was afraid of the same thing, I said. But I'd rather know. I'd rather be here scared and real than perfect and alone. We didn't kiss that day. There was no dramatic music, no running into each other's arms, just two people who chose to see. To be seen. And somehow, that felt more romantic than anything else. After we left the library, we walked together in silence, through the park, along the river, until the sun began to set. He stopped, turned to me, and said, "Can I keep writing to you?" I laughed. "You better." And just like that, we started again. Not on the APP, but in real life. Every day a message, a letter, a note. Sometimes folded into my coat pocket. Sometimes waiting on my desk. Sometimes whispered over tea. We never stopped writing, because that's how we began. And maybe that's how we were always meant to last. Hope you are still listening the story. If you stayed so far, please hit the subscribe button. Comment below your thoughts. Okay, let's start the rest of the story. I didn't even know how long I had been sitting on the rooftop, arms wrapped around my knees as the chill of the early evening crept into my skin. The sunset painted the city in hues of orange and pink, but my heart ached too deeply to admire it. I was trying to forget what had happened at the coffee shop, the way Aiden had looked so casual with that girl, like I hadn't even existed. It was silly, wasn't it? I had no claim on him. But why did it hurt so much? I barely noticed when the rooftop door creaked open. I turned around, startled, only to find Aiden standing there, hands in his pockets, looking tired. There was something hesitant in his steps as he approached. "I figured I'd find you here," he said softly, sitting down a few feet away from me. "You always come here when you need to think." I glanced at him but didn't speak. The silence stretched between us, heavy and awkward. "She's just a classmate," he said suddenly, eyes fixed on the skyline. "We're in the same theater workshop. I was helping her rehearse lines." That's all. I wanted to believe him. But I also didn't want to be the girl who got hurt again. "You didn't mention her," I said, voice brittle. "You've told me about a million things, your mom's obsession with old Bollywood movies, the way you can't cook to save your life, Even your weird talent of reciting tongue twisters backward, but not her. His jaw tightened. Because I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think you cared. I scoffed, shaking my head. Of course I care. That hung between us like a confession neither of us wanted to unpack. Aiden turned to me then, his eyes searching mine. I didn't want to scare you off. I blinked. What? He looked down at his hands. You've built this wall around yourself, Naira. And I get it. I do. But I didn't want to push you. So I tried to act normal. Like a friend. I thought if I told you how I felt, you'd disappear. My heart skipped. He wasn't looking at me, so he didn't see how his words unraveled the tight knot inside me. So you like me? A dry laugh escaped him. Of course I do. I've been falling for you in slow motion every day since we met. I stared at him, my breath stuck somewhere in my throat. But it doesn't matter, he added quickly. If you don't feel the same, that's okay. I didn't want you to think I was hiding anything. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to throw my arms around him and say, yes, me too. I've been terrified, but yes. But I couldn't, not yet. I stood up slowly. Thanks for telling me. I should go. He looked up at me, pain flickering in his eyes, but he nodded. That night, I lay awake in bed, heart thudding, thoughts tangled. I couldn't deny how I felt. I couldn't ignore the pull between us. But what if we tried and it ended like before? What if I lost him completely? I needed time. The next few days passed with a cautious rhythm. We still met brief glances at the coffee shop, short conversations in the hallway, but the air between us had shifted. Then, one afternoon, as I was about to close the CAF, a small package arrived. No name, just my nickname scribbled in black ink, Miss Pen Caps. I opened it to find a notebook. Inside was a list titled The Things You Don't Say But I Know Anyway. I flipped through, heart racing. You love blueberry muffins, but always pick banana net so no one else fights you for the last one. You hum in your sleep. You pretend you don't like cheesy romcoms, but your eyes always get glassy. During the last scene, you carry pain like a badge, but you don't let it define you. You're stronger than you think. I like you, even if you never say it back. By the last page, my eyes were blurry with tears. And that's when I knew I had been so scared of the fall, I hadn't noticed I'd already jumped. Every time we met, there was a magnetism I couldn't explain. It wasn't just the excitement of secrecy anymore. It was something deeper, something that wrapped itself around my chest and held me breathless whenever I was near Armin. One rainy afternoon, the city was soaked in silence, and I had stayed late at the library, drenched in deadlines and caffeine. I hadn't told Armin I'd be working late, and I hadn't expected him to show up. But there he was, outside the building, holding a single umbrella. He didn't text or call. He simply waited. I figured you'd forget your umbrella, he said, smiling. Water dripped from his dark hair, his shirt clinging to his arms. I wanted to speak, to ask him why he cared so much. But instead, I stepped under the umbrella, and we walked in silence. It wasn't until we reached my apartment building that he spoke again. Why do we keep pretending this is temporary? He asked. We don't feel temporary. I was startled. Armin? I know, he said, cutting me off gently. We started this without rules. But I wake up thinking about you, go to sleep imagining your voice. That doesn't feel like a fling to me. It was the most vulnerable I'd seen him. And yet, instead of answering, I leaned in and kissed him. That night changed everything. The next morning, As I stirred beside him in my tiny apartment bed, reality crashed over me like waves against a stubborn cliff. The tangled sheets, our closeness. His peaceful sleeping face, I wanted to freeze the moment. But I couldn't. I quietly got up and made coffee. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Selina. Come to Mom's today. Armin will be there. Don't be late. She wants to talk about the engagement plans. My heart stopped. Engagement, I thought. Selina was bluffing all this time. That she was still just trying to make her ex jealous or provoke him. But it was becoming real. She had told our mother. When Armin woke up and joined me in the kitchen, he sensed something was off. Is everything okay? Selina invited me to your engagement planning meeting. His face lost color. She's taking this too far. You haven't told her, have you? I was going to, he said quickly. I wanted to figure out what we are first, and now, I don't want to hide anymore. It should have felt like a triumph, but all I felt was fear. I wasn't scared of being with Armin. I was scared of breaking Selina's heart. As twisted as our relationship had become, still I agreed to go. That evening, at our mother's house, the air was tight with unspoken tension. Selina wore a silk blouse and an expression of smug victory. Armin sat beside me, uncomfortably distant. Mom beamed. So, let's talk about the ceremony. Selina showed me some venues. Armin, darling, do you have a preference? He didn't speak. Everyone stared. Then, Armin stood up. There won't be a ceremony, he said quietly. Selina blinked. Excuse me, I can't marry you, he said. Because I'm in love with someone else. Gasps followed. Mom dropped her teacup. Selina stood up slowly. You're joking. Armin looked at me. And in that moment, everyone knew. Selina's face twisted in disbelief. Her, she spat. You're leaving me for her? She's not a backup plan, Armin said. She's everything I was looking for before I even knew it. You think she's better than me? Selina's voice cracked. She's always been second. Second in grades. Second in life. She copies me. Even now she stole you. I made my choice, he said, coldly. Selina stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. My mother looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Armin gently took my hand, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow after we left. He tried to comfort me. It'll pass. The pain, the anger, they'll understand. But I wasn't sure. For the first time in weeks, I told him I needed space. Not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't know who I was anymore. Sister, betrayer, lover, villain. That night, I lay awake alone, wondering if real love was worth all the wreckage it left behind. I didn't know how to describe what was happening between us anymore. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't that classic enemies to lovers trope. It was different, slower, more uncertain, more real. After that rainy night when he gave me his jacket, things between us shifted. Not drastically but subtly. Like the way he started looking at me a second longer. The way he'd ask if I'd eaten lunch. Or how he always seemed to walk me to the campus gate, pretending it was coincidence, even when I knew it wasn't. We weren't texting all the time. We weren't hanging out every day. But there was this growing frequency of being present in each other's lives, like puzzle pieces that slowly found their fit. One afternoon, I was at the student CAF finishing up my paper. The table beside me wobbled every time I moved. I balanced my laptop awkwardly, annoyed. Without a word, he pulled up a chair. placed his phone under one of the table legs and said, "It's not perfect, but at least it won't shake now." I looked up at him, confused but amused. "What about your phone?" He shrugged. "It's just a phone." I laughed. "You're insane." He smiled. "Insanely practical." Later that evening, we ended up walking back together. The sky was tinted orange, the kind of sunset that made you feel something you couldn't name. He paused. "Do you ever wonder how we got here?" I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, "we started off ignoring each other. You thought I was arrogant. I thought you were cold." "I didn't think you were arrogant," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "Okay, maybe a little," I admitted with a smile. "But you acted like you didn't care about anyone." "Because I didn't," he said. "Until you." The air around us shifted. I didn't know what to say, so I looked away. But in that moment, a soft silence wrapped around us, more meaningful than 100 perfectly chosen words. Days went on. We still weren't official. We didn't label anything. But there was this invisible thread that kept pulling us closer until the night everything almost unraveled. It was the University Cultural Fest. He was performing with his band. I had no idea he could even sing. When he walked onto the stage, guitar slung over his shoulder, hair messy, eyes focused, I barely recognized him. And then he began to sing, not just any song. A song he wrote. The lyrics spoke about a girl who never looked back, who hid behind books and sarcasm. A girl who didn't know how breathtaking she was because no one ever told her. A girl who he really saw even when she tried to disappear into the crowd. My heart pounded. When the performance ended, people clapped. I didn't move. And then I saw her, the girl from his past, the one who'd broken him. She walked up to him backstage, smiling, touching his arm like old times. And he didn't push her away. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but a familiar ache crept into my chest. That voice in my head returned. "See? This is why you don't let your guard down." I left early. The next morning, I didn't reply to his text, or the one after that, or his call. By evening, he showed up at the library. His eyes scanned until they found me. "You're avoiding me," he said, sitting across from me. I stayed silent. "Is it because of her?" My silence deepened. "She came backstage after the show," he explained. "I didn't invite her. She wanted to talk. I listened. That's all." "You didn't walk away," I murmured. He frowned. I was stunned. "She cheated on me and ghosted me. And now she shows up after a year, like nothing happened." I looked at him. "Did you still feel something for her?" He didn't answer immediately. "I felt closure," he said at last. "I realized I don't want her. I don't want the past. I want you." The lump in my throat softened. "But," he added, "if you don't trust me, this won't work." I met his eyes. "I'm scared," I whispered. "So am I," he said. "But I'm still here." And just like that, he reached across the table and took my hand. I didn't pull away. That night, for the first time, I allowed myself to hope. For weeks, things between me and Rayan flowed like a slow, sweet melody. We had settled into a quiet routine of texts, calls, and sometimes just being online at the same time, saying nothing but feeling everything. We still hadn't met in person again after our initial encounter, but somehow the absence of physical contact didn't create a distance, it built anticipation. I found myself waiting for his messages, rereading our conversations, smiling like a teenager with a secret crush. Except it wasn't just a crush. It was comfort, hope, That soft place you dream of landing when the world feels too loud. I knew I was falling hard, and then, just when I was beginning to think I could finally trust this, reality did what it always does, it interfered. It was a Sunday afternoon when I got the call. My mom had tripped in the kitchen and fractured her ankle. She was fine, but she needed help for a while, especially since Dad was out of the country for work. I packed a bag and headed to my parents' house, not realizing that this small change in location would become a massive shift in the rhythm I'd carefully built with Rayan. Back at my childhood home, the internet connection was unreliable, the rooms full of echoes from my teenage years, and the distractions endless. Cooking, cleaning, doctor visits, it left little room for anything else. Rayan noticed the change before I could explain it. "You okay?" he messaged one night. "You seem distant." I paused for a long moment before replying. "Yeah, just a lot going on at home. My mom's injured, so I'm helping out." His response came instantly. "Oh no, is she okay?" "She will be. Just a fracture. But it's been hectic." "I get it. Take your time. I'm here." His understanding should have comforted me. Instead, I felt a slow panic creep in. Because even though he said he was okay, I could feel the space between us widening. Our conversations became shorter, the silences longer, and then, one night, I saw something that made my heart sink. Rayan had posted a photo on his story. It was at a cozy cafe I'd never seen before, with a caption that read, "When conversation flows better in person." The photo showed 2 cups of coffee and someone's hand, a woman's hand. Her nails were painted sky blue. I stared at it longer than I should, wondering why it made my chest hurt so much. We weren't exclusive. We hadn't even officially declared anything. But wasn't it understood? Weren't we building something? The doubt clawed at me all night. The next morning, I gathered enough courage to ask, "Had a good time yesterday?" There was a pause. Then Rayan replied, "Yeah, met an old friend." "Why?" I hesitated, then typed, "Just saw your story." Another pause. Then, "Ah, right. Just catching up. Nothing serious." Nothing serious. The words stuck, even if they were meant to reassure me. I wanted to believe him. I really did, but something inside me shifted. A voice I hadn't heard in a long time whispered, "Protect your heart." So I pulled back, a little at first. Shorter messages, slower replies. Then, eventually, I stopped reaching out altogether. I told myself it was just for now, until things at home settled, until I felt more grounded. But days turned into a week, and Rayan didn't text. I checked his profile more times than I'd admit, hoping for a sign that he missed me, that he noticed the silence. But there was nothing. My heart felt like a tightly closed book, the pages too delicate to touch. I missed him. I hated that I missed him. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding. Was I really falling for someone who could slip away so easily? The next morning, I did something bold. I messaged him. "Hey." No emojis. No fluff. Just a raw, vulnerable hey. He didn't reply that day or the next. And just like that, silence became louder than any words he could have said. The silence from Rayan was deafening. Each day without a message felt like a slow unraveling of everything I'd hoped for. I caught myself staring at my phone, willing it to light up with his name, but it never did. I questioned everything. Was I just another distraction for him? A convenience when life was quiet? Or worse, was he already gone, and I was the last to know. The worst part wasn't even the absence. It was the not knowing. The endless questions spinning in my mind like a carousel I couldn't get off. I tried to keep busy. I dove into work, took long walks, reread old books, but none of it filled the hollow that his silence left. Then, out of the blue, one evening, I saw a message pop up on my screen. "Hey, can we talk?" My heart leapt. Finally, I replied immediately, "Yes, please." We agreed to meet at a small CAF, the one where we had our first real conversation weeks ago. When I saw him walk in, a mixture of relief and hurt washed over me. He looked tired, eyes a little shadowed, face drawn, but there was a sincerity in his smile that I hadn't seen in days. "I'm sorry," he began, sitting down across from me. "I should've told you sooner. It wasn't fair to leave you wondering." I nodded, urging him to continue. "It's complicated," he said. "That friend you saw me with, she's someone from my past, someone I thought I had left behind. But when she reached out, it brought up things I wasn't ready to face." I listened quietly, my heart pounding. "I didn't want to hurt you. That's why I pulled away. Because I wasn't sure if I could be the person you deserved." Tears pricked my eyes. "Ryan," I said softly, "I'm not perfect either. I'm scared. I get jealous. I overthink. But I want to try if you're willing." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "I am. I want to be better. For us." For the first time in a long time, hope flickered. We talked for hours, unpacking fears, setting boundaries, and promising honesty. It wasn't magic. It wasn't instant. But it was real. That night, as I walked home, the city lights sparkled like a promise. Maybe love wasn't perfect. Maybe it was messy and uncertain. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth fighting for. Time, once our enemy, became our quiet ally. After that CAF conversation, Rayan and I didn't rush. We didn't fall back into long midnight calls or breathless texting marathons. Instead, we rebuilt slowly, honestly, cautiously. Some days felt fragile, like walking on thin ice. Others felt full of laughter and warmth, the kind that makes you believe you're exactly where you're meant to be. I noticed the difference in how he looked at me now. There was no longer a layer of guarded distance in his eyes. There was presence. There was vulnerability. There was choice. He showed up more in the little things, sending voice notes when he knew I had a rough day, showing up unannounced, just to sit on a bench and share the sunset, asking questions, not just to respond, but to truly understand. And I showed up too. I stopped overthinking his silences and started trusting his actions. I stopped rewriting my worth based on how much he messaged me. I let myself exist fully, not as someone waiting to be loved, but as someone already enough. Then one evening, under the violet hue of a dying sunset, we found ourselves at the place. It all began the bookstore CAF. I was tracing the rim of my mug, my thoughts wandering, when he suddenly pulled out a small journal. "I've been writing," he said, "about us." I looked at him, surprised. He opened to a page and began to read. It started with quiet smiles, with two people afraid to speak too loud, afraid they might scare something real away. But in the silences, we heard each other clearer than in words. My throat tightened. I thought I knew what love looked like. I thought it had to be perfect, passionate, all-consuming. But then I met you, and you showed me it's in the pauses, in the choosing, in staying. Tears slipped down my cheeks as he looked up. "I'm not asking for forever. Not yet. I'm just asking, can we keep choosing this every day?" I nodded, overwhelmed. "Yeah," I whispered. We can. He reached for my hand, and I let him. And just like that, the quiet connection that started through a notebook in a dusty bookstore became something bigger. Not perfect, not promised, but real, and that was more than enough. Thanks for watching. If you watched till the end, please comment love so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.